Fala galera, fala galera. My name is Paulo. For those who don't know me, this is my deck list that I use to win the YCS Guatemala the past weekend, and this is my YouTube channel where I used to make content like competitive content in Portuguese, but I will try to do some content in English for the Brazilian guys who follow me all those years. I will keep doing content in Portuguese. I will do a in-depth in-depth depth profile in Portuguese too. But first, just to get for more people, I will do this in English as well. And this is the deck that I would use in Guatemala. There are some key differences in the main deck where I changed some things. If you guys want to know the deck that I use in the other events, like I, for those who don't know, I won YCS Atlanta and UDS Medellin and YCS Guatemala back to back to back. So in the first two events, I used pretty much the same deck. Main side and extra was pretty much the same thing, and the only difference was that I used Hita instead of Unicorn from Atlanta to Medellin. But then in Guatemala, I thought that it would be a good thing to change a little bit because two things happened. The rise in Sky Striker that started to happen in Medellin. In Medellin, it was a noticed trend, and I think it was a really good decision. And I think that the third win was really impacted by those decisions by changing some cards in my deck. The change that I made was I put two Share Rides and two Twin Twists in the main deck, and cards that were in my side deck, and took off two MSTs, one Veiler, and one Call by the Grave. What I did was, you guys can see there's a lot of two offs and some like one offs in the main deck, in the side deck, things that you usually don't see and I usually don't do, but I was super satisfied about my 55 cards that I was using my main deck in my side. So my intention was just making my main deck a little bit better against the Sky Strike game 1, but post side I would have the exact same deck that I had in the other events post side. For example, my post side against Sky Strike is the same 40 cards than before, because I played the same 55 cards. So that's the reason that I did something like play one Call, one Shard, one Twin, and one, I don't know what else. Whatever. I play all of those one-offs in the side deck because I want to keep this game plan that was working, and I think it still works in Guatemala as well. But I want to make my game 1 a little bit better. It was the rise of Sky Striker in that event that I noticed, and not only that, the rise of Sky Striking maining for Sky Striker. So many of the other Sky Striker were maining Shy Ride, and were maining Twin Twists, and were maining multiple Ego Boosts, and sometimes Ogre too. All cards that I use. And not only that, the Sky Strike had a rise in the hands of the more known players. So with that in mind, I think it was a good decision to main a little bit harder for Sky Strike and a little bit less for Salamangreat, which were the deck that I was aiming to win game 1 more reliable, with more reliability. Oh, I don't know the word, but it was my intention was to focus on Sky Strike on game 1, and yeah, it was really good. But I didn't want to give up completely on the other matchups. For example, a combo deck or Salamangreat, for example. So that's what I did, and yeah, I really liked the changings, and it was really good. some things about the deck. I'm first explaining why I did the change that I did, because yeah, I think it's important. And one thing that I think might need to explain is like why Valor over Impermanence. I think this is a question that I get a lot, and probably the biggest reason is that in this deck you have a lot of things to set, and it seems like a bad reason, but comes up a lot. For example, you have a multi-row that are able to set 2 cards, for example, like a multi-row that can set anchor and engage, for example. This is really common scenario. And if you have impermanence instead of Valor, this card, these impermanence compete with other cards to be set in your turn. For example, you have Shark Cannons to set, Twin Twisters to set, Call by the Graves to set, Eagle Boost to set, Share Right to set. So this is one more card that another anchor, for example. That's a really common scenario where you try to set up 2 anchors. And yeah, so you have 1 anchor to set from grave, and you want to set 1 engage because you want that your Shizuku search another engage on the end phase. So, and you have the multi-row itself, so you have only 2 spots. And sometimes you have like a lot of things that are settable and that you want to set, like Share Right. You kind of need to set Share Right, right? So having a card that is not settable and it is still an interaction, still a hand trap, was the reason that I thought the Valor was a better choice to main than Impermanence. I know it sounds like a bad reason, but it's not. Like this made a lot of difference. When I was playing Impermanence, which it is the all-around better card because it has more effects, right? Does pretty much what Valor do, but does more. I find myself like really often have to choose between, okay, now I have to set this impermanence or this Twin Twister, this impermanence or this Shark Cannon, this impermanence or this Call by the Grave. This happens a lot. With the inclusion of the Share Right, this happens even more often. So this is pretty much the biggest reason why I decide to play Valor and Impermanence. Sky Strike is all about the little things. That's a thing that you have to keep in mind when you heard the reasonings about stuff. It is all about the long term. Like your decision sometimes doesn't have an impact in that game, but if you keep doing the right thing, like the most valuable play in the long term, you get better results, and I think that's what happened like in those events. Okay, another thing that I think is really important to talk about is the lack of some cards. For example, the lack of Jamie Wave. Okay, this one is the one that people ask me more. Like, Jamie Wave, why don't you play Jamie Wave? Are you an idiot? Or well, how can you not play Jamie Wave in a meta with Sky Strike Salamangreat? So one thing that I believe is that you can't play too much Spell and Trap removal cards. But Spell and Trap removal cards are not only Jamie Wave and Twin Twitch or Mystical Space Typhoon. You have to put more cards in that category. For example, Eagle Boost is kind of this type of cards. Even Afterburner is just like a card like this. So having that many cards that do kind of the same thing is really bad because you can afford to open one. Usually those cards are really bad going first. They usually are. So not really bad, but not the type of cards that you want. So you can open, or you can afford to open one, but you can't afford to open multiples. And Jamie Wave is a card that is really, really bad going first. Like, I think everyone can agree with that. And going second is like an MST that kills a card. Okay, I get it. But I think the main selling point of Jamie Wave, instead of being like a Twin Twist or a Mystical Space Typhoon, which were the card that I was using before, it is the fact that it is a Sky Striker card, so it is searchable. In Sky Striker, you have like 3 ways to search a card. because it is a Sky Striker card. One is Engage, another one is Shizuku, and another one is a random field spell hitting a Jamie Wave. In my testings, and I think they were accurate in that aspect, Jamie Wave is a card that you really rarely search, especially in the early game. And I think early games are like super important. Games are really deciding by the turn 2, 3, 4 at most. So it is really unlikely that you search proactively a Jamie Wave. For example, it's really unlikely in the early game, even in the mirror match, even against Salamangreat, that you use an Engage and you look at your deck and the best option for you to search is a Jamie Wave. You have so many other cards that take priority instead of searching Jamie Wave, and this is a really big reason. Against Shizuku is not even close, like you almost never getting Jamie Wave from Shizuku, only in kind of grinding games where you don't have a better target, but usually you prefer to get so many other options, like Another Engage, like Anchor, Multi-Roll, Eagle Booster. All those cards are most of the time take priority over Jamie Wave. I think the best selling point of Jamie Wave instead of Twin Twister, which is the card that or Mystical Space Typhoon, which is the card that I'm comparing to, is the fact that Jamie Wave can randomly appear on a field spell, and that's okay. I think that's the best case scenario for Jamie Wave because you're not searching Jamie Wave. I think people overvalue the fact that Jamie Wave is searchable and undervalue the fact that Jamie Wave is awful going first. And not only that, they undervalue the fact that Jamie Wave doesn't kill Multi-Roll. I can't stress this enough. Killing Multi-Roll is a top priority in the mirror match, and it's sometimes better to make your Kagari get negated by an anchor than you have an MST. Let's say you have MST, right? Sometimes, not always, like Sky Strike is all about the situation, but sometimes, more often than you think, it's better for you to use MST on the Multi-Roll than there are only one face down card that you know it's an anchor. Because this Multi-Roll is the card that's going to snowball this game. Sometimes you go like, of course, sometimes you go MST on the anchor and you can afterburner and kill the Multi-Roll, but sometimes you can't. So in the instance that, okay, I can't kill this Multi-Roll, sometimes it's better to kill the Multi-Roll. This is how much I value killing Multi-Roll. And Jamie Wave doesn't kill Multi-Roll. And I think this is a huge downside. And that's probably the main reasoning. Not only the fact that Jamie Wave the searching of Jamie Wave doesn't come super often, but the fact that Jamie Wave doesn't kill Multi-Roll. Multi-Roll is like top priority in your need to destroy something. In the mirror match is like insanely important. And yeah, I think this is the biggest reason for not using Jamie Wave. And of course, if I didn't care too much about using too many spells and trap removal, Jamie Wave would be like the 41, 42, 43rd, like one of those cards, right? Like would be like this if I wouldn't play more than 40. But I would never play more than 40 in this deck, by the way. And because this deck has consistency issue as it is, that's why I play all of the consistent cards that I think are valuable. So yeah, so this is about Jamie Wave. Another thing, I think my deck is more about what is lacking, what I don't use, than what I use. So other card that is really popular right now that many players use and I don't agree with is Pot of Desires. I think Desires are really bad in a meta where Sky Striker, when you play Sky Striker and the Sky Striker mirror is popular, which is right now. Desires is like the easiest way to you to lose the mirror match. When my opponent uses Desires against me, and I of course don't use Desires, all I have to do is not completely lost control of the game. if I don't completely lost control of the game, I'm 100% sure that some card is going to be missing, like the third anchor, the third multi-roll, sometimes the one-offs like even Sharkano, Afterburner, some Ray. If the game, if the desire doesn't make your opponent completely destroys you, which in my opinion is not very likely to happen, it's not because they use desire they're going to get so ahead that you have to like scoop or whatever. You can stay in the game long enough not losing the game to just win the long term. This a very good example of this scenario were my finals in UDS Medellin. I started, like, if you compare hands and see how the game started in the UDS Medellin final, I was super behind. And especially because Desire helped him to get ahead at the early game. He had more cards, had one more spell engraved. He hit your, he found engages, but he also banish a lot of resources. And especially when the opponent uses desires, your priority is not letting their multi-roll resolve a lot. And in that scenario, I think I had MS10 and Ogre. And mine, as soon as he used desires, I thought, okay, I just don't need to be like completely destroyed. If I don't get completely destroyed, something's going to be missed at some point. And that exactly that happened, and especially in finals where you have 1 hour to play, and that's very good for Sky Striker Mules, by the way. You have more time to play one game, right? And that's what happened. I think our game one took like 40 minutes, and I won because at some point he started to missing cards. There was one specific point where he used an engage, and I thought with myself, okay, this is probably going to be an anchor search or afterburner search, even a multi-roll search, and he searched like he tried to search and it searched a field spell, and I was like, now I know what's missing. Like all of those cards that I talked about, like the third, it was the third multi-roll, or the third anchor, or the third, or not the third, but the afterburner. All those cards would be searched in front of the field spell that he already had. And at that point, I realized, okay, he banished those cards for sure. There is no other way. I look at the grave, it's like, okay, these cards are banished. So if I managed to stay like, I was behind, but not completely lost, and this is what happened in Sky Striker Mirrors. And yeah, this is a very good example. And then he had like nothing to search. He was engaged into nothing. Like he's engaged search a field, which is the same thing as nothing. Then you draw into more nothing because I mean you can draw into hand traps and twin twisters if you play, or some non-engine card that are good in the mirror match. Okay, but engage itself, and there's nothing else to search. And this happens more often than you think. And I understand the where people come from by playing desires. I want to increase consistency of this deck, and I understand. I think in one meta game where you don't have Sky Striker Mirrors, maybe is correct. I still don't like it very much, but maybe there's argument to play. But where Sky Striker Mirrors are relevant, I would never play desires, and I didn't. And I won really often games that I got desires. I play a lot of mirror match, those free events, and some of those were won by me because of desires, but my opponent desires. And yeah, I think this is another thing that I need to explain because it's a really important, really common card right now that I don't like very much, and that's what the main reasons. I think in the meta where, for example, Thunder Dragon is by far the most popular deck, then Desire is more valuable. Like in the UDS Pasadena, where the guy who won with Sky Striker used 3 Desires with like 12 hand traps or something like this. And I think the deck to beat was Goki, and he won with Sky Striker. Then I understand, like, there is no grind. You just like hand trap Desires into play. That's all you want to do. And then I understand. Like, this is like an extreme scenario. I think those are really extreme scenarios. There's almost no mirror matches in that matter. I mean, there were mirror matches, of course, but not as much as right now. And yeah, you have to evaluate the metagame you're playing. What else? Ogre. I think Ogre is really important because, as I said, I think um, Sky Striker is a really important matchup, especially in the last event. But I play Ogre in all three events, and Ogre was my concession to Sky Striker, especially in the first events where Sky Striker wasn't my main target, but Ogre was a concession that I did, and it was also decent against combo. So not decent, pretty good against combo. So I really like Ogre. As I said, I think multi-roll is by far the most important card in the mirror match, and have a way to destroy that is really important. Um, Call of the Grave is another card that not everyone uses, and I think it's okay. I think it's a good card going first, uh, pretty much against everything. Like, it's not the best card in the mirror match, but it's okay. Like, it's hard to not have a way to use Call of the Grave. That's a really good thing about the card. The fact that the spell really being a spell in this deck has like a plus plus in like, okay, I'm going to use this card or not. It is a spell. Being a spell is like super important, and as you can see, I play 30 spells, and most of Sky Striker plays a lot of spells. But I'm just saying that if you compare with another card, the card being a spell is a really good thing. And Call of the Grave is a card that improves the going first, which I think is a thing that you need to think about when you play Sky Striker, because it's not like you're not playing Thunder where you pretty much win when you go first, like almost a really high percentage of the time. And Sky Striker is not like that. You don't insta win your games. Almost never, unless you drew like really well with a bunch of engages and whatever, a bunch of spells. If you don't draw like that, yeah, if you play a okay hand like Ray, hand traps, defense pass, having multiple defenses are really good, and different types of defenses. That's why I think sometimes having like different things are decent, like Veiler, Ogre, Call, Shard, Shark, all those different cards. I think they are useful when going first with Sky Strike. And Call is a good card that helps on that, and also has a double function where you makes your multi-roll to resolve it, since you can negate Ogre, or make your Kagari resolve, which is again another top priority. Like, that's why I like to Eagle boosters as well. So yeah, I really like Call by the Grave, and also I think Call by the Grave it is also above average against Solomon Great. Of course, going first is insane, but going second is also really decent. Like, use Call by the Grave as proactively. Like, use Call by the Grave on the Jaguar, on the Foxy, or even on the Wolf. Like, they have one Wolf on the field and one Wolf on the grave. Use Call by the Grave and get the third spell and negates the Wolf for the next turn. And all those scenarios are really good. And being a spell is really important because against Solomon Great, when you go second, you kind of need to resolve engage, and that engage needs to draw. Like, that's the way you come back in the game. And having a spell that go like use the spell is really good. That's why in the first two events where my deck were more focused on Solomon Great, I use two MSTs and Cloud by the Grave. Three more cards that are like this. You use going second, 1-for-1 with something, and I think Cloud by the Grave using on a Solomon Great, a good Solomon Great card in Grave is you can seize a 1-for-1. It's really important because you go like MST, Call by the Grave, you use like a Terraform, your Fluffy Goods or whatever, then you have 3 spells in Grave, your Kagari resolve to get engaged, and you engage into Anchor or Multiple or something. So yeah, I think this is really important that you resolve engage drawing, and like, that's a lot of against of Solomon Great, and that scenario is really important, it's really common too. So yeah, that's about Call by the Grave. What else? Yeah, my side deck, like the beginning of my side deck is a little weird because I have the complement of the cards that I play too often in the main deck just to make my post side the exact deck that I wanted, and I use it on the other event. So, for example, if I play against Sky Striker, I put the 2 MSTs, the 2 Intuition, the Shard Ride, and took off the 2 Calls and 2 Veilers. So my deck, that deck with 3 Twins, 3 Shards, 2 MSTs, that deck is the deck, my post side is the exact post side deck that I used in the first two events, and that happened to all matchups. So I have the exact post side deck against everything, even my main deck being different because I play the extra copies. For example, against Solomon Great, I put the Calbo the Great back, I put the MST back, depending if I go first or second, I put the Villa back. So yeah, I just make around my deck towards the matchup that I want to play against, that I'm playing against. And I think that sometimes there's like a really popular thought where you have to choose something to win game one. I agree to that at some extent. Like, I think most of the time it's better to choose, but depends what choosing means. Like, what choosing means. Like, okay, I choose to win against Sky Striker, so I need to give up completely on Salaman Great. Like, let's say I chose to completely counter Sky Striker game one, so I would not play Calbo the Grave in the mains, maybe not play Verla in the main, but those extra cards would improve my Sky Striker mirror, right? For sure, by some percentage, but would completely destroy my other matchups. So, but those cards are not bad against Sky Striker. So I think you can. This choice is really dependent on how impactful the cards that you're putting or the cards that you're taking are to begin with. Like, these cards are not awful against Sky Striker. I think they're like not so good. That's why I cite them, but they're not bad. Like, they're far from bad. So yeah, I think that's the reason that sometimes, but not all the time, it's that is reasonable to not go all-in against something. And I think this is a particular scenario where I think you don't need to. And going all-in, which is like the common sense, like you have to choose your enemy in one, which is the common thought that people usually have, sometimes not the right thing. And I think in this scenario wasn't. Especially even in the first two events where my deck were more focused against Salaman Great, I didn't give up completely on the mirror since I played 2 Eagle Boosters, 2 Ogres. So those two cards, I think especially those two cards, like Ogre is not very good against Salaman Great, and the second Eagle Booster is also not necessary against Salaman Great. But those cards, especially like the second Eagle Boost, is super impactful against Sky Striker. It happens a lot. And Ogre, as I said, multi-role, top priority. So Ogre is also really good in that too. So I think I could make some concession. If I went all-in against Salaman Great, I would not play those 3 cards and put more free cards against Salaman Great, for example. But I don't feel like I need to. I think I don't need to hurt so much, because the meta is also not so for one deck. It's not so Salaman Great oriented. It's not so Sky Striker oriented. My last event, the Guatemala one, I played 12 rounds in total, like counting everything, and 7 were Sky Striker. So yeah, it was more than half, but it's still not at like 9, 10 of 12. So 5 of those rounds or other decks. I think out of those 3 or 2 were Salaman Greats, for example, and 2 were Thunder. So you have to think about the shit. And what else? I really like Punkatrops. In the middle of the UDS Medellin, I don't know if this is a common thing, but at least there, I start to realize that the Salaman Great players were siding Floodgates, which it is a common thing, but they are even siding Floodgates when they go second. And when I realized that, I started to side Punkatrops in going first, which is not so common, but it really worked, because in top 8 and top 4 I play against 2 Salaman Greats there, and I drew this Punkatrop going first, and of course didn't use it. But it's not like Salaman Great going to destroy you going second when they go second, right? Especially if they draw a Floodgate, they have one less card, so they will try to kind of break your board, like hit hit you your face down, and it's really unlikely for you to die. And this Punka Drop really helps to seal the deal the next turn, because usually the only way for you to completely control of the game is like by they flipping a Fluid Gate, even if they go for second. So this Punka Drops really help on that. And yeah, it was really useful to have a card like this, and this change of mindset mid-tournament, which is also a thing that I think you need to think about when you're playing. Like, you don't need to be so strict. You have to be like, you can change your mind, like in depending on the scenario. Sky Strike is a deck that you have to be like this. What else? Lance is really good against combo. Okay, for the ones who are still here, all my deck profiles are like this. Like, I talk for like 1 hour, so yeah. Lancer are really good against combo. Yeah, really helped me against combo. Especially Thunder. I have to be honest, I drew this card a lot when I play against Thunder, especially. And really helped. Really helped. And okay, I forgot. I don't play any floodgates, right? I don't play Summon Limits. I don't play. What's the other one? There can be only one. And there are some reasons. The biggest reason it is that those cards are the cards that they are aiming to destroy, like to focus on. For example, in the finals of YCS Atlanta, Jesse Cotton put Red Reboot against me, and I think so. At least Azala put against Michelle, which we are playing the same deck, and they are not wrong, because usually the Sky Striker players play Floodgates, which wasn't our case, so that really hurt them, and I think that was a good thing for us. And also, not only that, they have Punka Drops into Intuition, so those cards are weak to. They are strong against Floodgates, and I don't like that interaction very much. Another thing that it seems dumb, but it's a card that you need to set. A card that you need to set, again, this is so underrated. Like, having a card that you need to set in this deck, it is a liability. Like, you have so many things. You want to get full value, like, of your mutual. Sometimes you want to set a mutual of a mutual just because you can. It is an extra card. It's a card that you gain for no reason. So having a card that you need to set is sometimes problematic, and I don't like that very much. This is another thing. And I think probably the main reason is that if I play Floodgates in my side deck, especially, I would never play Floodgates in the main deck, but if I play in the side deck, I would have to cut most likely one of the hand traps. And by doing that, my going second against combo would be worse, because I have many things to side out. For example, let's say I play against combo. I have to take the Clouds, I have to take the Shards, I have to take Eagle, I have to take Shark in case of Thunder, which is not very good, Shark. So in here alone are like 6 cards, right? So let's say I don't play Impermanence, I don't play Lance, and I play There Can Be Only One or Summon Limit there. How the fuck do I side going second? So I have to put the Lances, and what else? I have to keep something in my deck. I have to keep the Clouds going. I have to keep the Clouds in my deck, the second Eagle booster, but I just don't want to do that. Like, I have to take out the fucking twins too. So as you can see, you have to take out a lot of cards. And yeah, it would be really, really bad to not have the option to have a hand trap. So a hand trap is a card, of course, when you go first, it's better to have a summon limit, or they can be one day impermanence. But impermanence is a card that you can put in both scenarios. If I didn't have this problem where I need to side out the calls and the shard and the twins and the shark and the eagle, like 8 cards, if I didn't have this problem, would it be okay to have a Floodgate? Like, I think the Floodgate is probably the best card that you can put going first against a combo deck. But I have constraints, like I only have 15 space. I can't have everything, and I think it were more important to have a card that going second do something like impermanence, and going first is also defense. Okay, it is a way worse defense because it's also a card that you can set, which is worse than the others, is worse than some limits, like they lose to the same type of cards. But it's a card that I can choose second, that I can use when I go second, and I value there way higher they have like this super broken going first card. And that's why I didn't play any Floodgates. And I don't think this is against combo where I think is the only matchup where I think Floodgates are like really necessary, not necessary, but more important. But against uh, Salamangreat, where many people side Floodgates against too, like there can be one in some limit. I don't think it's necessary. I think Sky Striker does really well going first against Salamangreat, like with good cards. Like I really like, for example, Shard Ride going first against Salamangreat. I think is really good. It's a card that don't lose to anything. Um, if they side to East or Punkatrops or things like this, they don't lose to that, and I really like that interaction, where it's a card that really punishes them, and they usually don't kill you. They don't kill you, so Shard Ride usually gets value. It is a spell, so I think it's really good pluses on Shard Ride in that scenario. But going second is really bad against um, Salamangreat. What else? In the extra deck, I played a Hita. In the first event, I didn't because I was dumb. I should have tested the card more. In the second event, in Atlanta, I didn't play. In Medellin, I played, but I wasn't so used to play Hita, so I didn't make a lot of Hita plays. But between Medellin and Guatemala, was like 3 weeks in a row, right? So in that 1 week, I say, okay, I'm going to always think, can I make Hita right now, like in testing, right? And now I have the mindset of Hita, and the card is really useful. I think in comparison of the other card that I was using, which is Unicorn, I think Hita is way better because she does a really different thing. It's really different than the other cards. You usually get away by using Nigirisu instead of Unicorn. Usually Nigirisu is better than Unicorn, and the times where Unicorn would be better, you can get away from Nigirisu. And yeah, Hita is really good because she cheats out the link mechanic, right? So you can get a, monster and use two monsters and you have like a link 2 and a monster, or sometimes you got a link 2 like Slumgrid Wolf or Phoenix. So yeah, it really helps, and you have to have the topological bomber because usually the card that you make after using Hita, and I think it was really good. I think it was really good and really useful card that you make some link plays that sometimes are not available to you. A card that I never do is Bursword Dragon. By far the card that I don't do in this deck. And maybe it's a card that you can cut. I didn't have the balls to cut it, but I have to be honest. I think I've only made Bursword once on all 3 events combined. So this is usually a bad sign for a card. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. And this one I have to think more. But yeah, it's a card that I'm not doing. And sometimes some people play to Hayate. That's no fucking way you can play to Hayate. I don't understand. You use a lot of the Hayate on the first turn, where you use Field Spell, Chain Ray, and you can waste your Kaina. The only way that you can play to Hayate is like if you play to Kainas, which I don't agree. So to play the second Kaina instead of the third Hayate. I think Hayate comes up way more often than the second Kaina. So yeah, you have to have 4 of those. That's what I'm saying. You have at least 10 Sky Striker cards. And that's it. I think that's it. I think I made a really big profile for those who like it to hear in-depth things. My English is not the best one, but I think I got my message across. And if you guys like this type of content, I know the Brazilian players like it because I've been doing this for some years now, but I don't know how the international community are about like these long length videos, like just a guy talking about shit. So if you guys like, let me know. It would be really good if you guys comment and on the Facebook and the YouTube video, just for me to know if it's the type of content my videos are like this. I just going to talk about something, and like for not 5 minutes. So yeah, if you guys like, let me know. And you have any critic or I don't know something, just say it. That's it. Really happy that I won the event. I still can't believe it, but I really try hard for that, and finally my hard work pays out. See you guys later. Bye.